And welcome, sports fans, to today's roundtable. Hopefully, you're surviving the ice that we've had over what was that, Thursday night into Friday, and a lot of schools out Friday. No basketball games in the area across Friday night, so not a typical Friday night in January, as typically we're into some very good conference high school basketball this time of the year, but not Friday night. We had some really good matchups lined up Friday night for high school basketball across the area, but the ice really wiped that out Thursday night, so we'll see what is in store for us this next week in high school basketball. But the game that we were going to bring was Bertie and Dexter, always a good one in the Stoddard County Conference, and that game really looked like to be a competitive one, especially this year. Both teams playing at a high level, but we're actually going to have that made up. We'll talk about that in our broadcast that we're going to bring to you next week here momentarily. But a pretty thin night in high school basketball. We're going to give you some updates from a couple nights ago and into some highlights of the games that we brought to you this week here on YHC. So taking a look at some of the games we brought to you take a look at the Thursday night games in the area. Taking a look at that Boot Hill Conference matchup, the South Pemiscot Bulldogs. They've put together quite a week of play. Going back a couple of weeks, they beat Malden a couple of weeks ago, and then Thursday night got a nice victory over Crothersville in the Boot Hill Conference as well. A 63-61 victory, the South Pemiscot Bulldogs over the Crothersville Tigers. So South Pemiscot looking really good in the conference so far. If they seed that here in the next week, they're going to look awful good in that seeding for that Boot Hill Conference tournament that's coming up. Going to be played at Portageville this year, which will be on hand for that the final night for the championship games of JV and varsity there in Portageville. They're in early February, so we're about a month away from that, probably 3 weeks away, more like it. But South Pemiscot, one of the surprises here for 2018 for sure. They're out of the Boot Hill Conference. And take a look at some other games from Thursday night. Gideon over Zenith Hornersville, 56-52. The Gideon Bulldogs surviving the Zenith Hornersville Lions for a victory for the Gideon Bulldogs Thursday night. Also, Oran over Woodland, 68-30. Nice victory for the Oran Eagles, the defending Class 2 state champions, victorious over Woodland in that matchup Thursday night. Also, Vianney over Jackson, 67-66. Close one there, but the Jackson Indians fall by a point to Vianney there Thursday night. And take a look at some girls basketball from the area. Take a look at Neelyville and Dexter, two of the top teams in Southeast Missouri in girls basketball this year. And it was a rematch of the Lady Royals Classic before Christmas in that 16-team tournament over at Twin Rivers. And the Neelyville Lady Tigers defeated Dexter in that rematch 70-60. Dexter got the first one over there in that tournament. And Neelyville came to the Bearcat Event Center in that game we brought to you Thursday night and got off to a great start and held on to the lead pretty much throughout. I don't think Dexter ever had a lead in the game in that matchup Thursday night, and Neelyville held on for that victory, for an impressive road victory for the Lady Tigers. So we got a highlight of that, so we'll take a look at the highlight from Thursday night. So let's take a look from the Bearcat Event Center in Dexter Thursday night that we brought to you. Taking a look here. I'll get it going here. As we see here, Neelyville on a really nice run to start. They got out to a... hold on here. We'll get started over here. And here we see Neelyville getting off to a great start. They're 4-0, now 7-0 with that three-pointer. And then here Fowler, who had a great night, going to the basket and the foul. Pass over to the left wing. I believe that's Worley for the three, making it 14-1 at that point, with a start for the Neelyville Lady Tigers. Now Dexter starting to get onto a run, and Shaylee Mosby knocking down that three on the right side, but Neelyville answering here, and Mosby getting a nice rebound and put back for the Lady Bearcats. And here Hannah Thurman knocking down a three in the right corner for the Bearcats. And here Neelyville withstands a nice run from the Lady Bearcats, continuing to knock the three-point shot down as Mosby continuing to have a nice night. She had 6 threes on the night. Hannah Thurman getting about 3 herself there, knocking that one down. And Fowler going to work right around the glass as she did all night. That's her second and one of the night to that point. Mosby knocking down another 3. And we see there Fowler, another basket and the foul. She was deadly right around the rim for the entire night as Mosby knocking down another 3. And there's Fowler right around the rim again. Basket and the foul as we're into the fourth quarter here. Towards the end, a three-pointer knocked down on the right side. Here, Hannah Thurman knocking down a 3 late in the fourth, but it's pretty much put away here as Dexter extending their defense, but coming up a bit short in the end to the Neelyville Lady Tigers, and an impressive victory for Neelyville. Neelyville, one of the top teams in the state in Class 2, which we'll get into those state rankings here in our next segment, but Dexter also in the top 10 in Class 4, but Neelyville, a very good team as they've had the last 2 or 3 years, and it's been a pretty good rivalry between these two schools. Neelyville and Dexter, they've traded wins on both sides. I believe Neelyville defeated Dexter last year in that Lady Royals Classic Tournament Championship, and then Dexter defeated them this year. So it's been quite a rivalry between those two schools. Dexter, they haven't got a whole lot of competition over the last couple of years here in the area, but Neelyville's been one of their toughest foes in Class 2. A very good basketball team this year. Once again, they've had a couple girls, new players this year. I believe moved into the district, so I think Fowler was one of them, maybe even Worley as well. So very impressive team in Neelyville this year, and they've got a good chance at going far, certainly in potential district and state tournament play. And the Oran Lady Eagles are right there in Class 2, who went to the Final Four last year, got by Neelyville, so that might be an interesting matchup once again this year. But very good showing by Neelyville. Dexter just got out to a slow start. They came back and pretty much played even. Once they got down 14-1, it was pretty much even game with a 10-point loss in the end by Dexter. But you know that first start was pretty much the difference. Once Neelyville got out to that 14-1 lead, just couldn't overcome that deficit there in the end at the Bearcat Event Center. So we'll see what happens. We're going to have some more Dexter girls basketball action for you this next week, and we'll talk about that here momentarily once we talk about the games we're doing next week. And more games from Thursday night in girls basketball. Saxony Lutheran defeating Woodland 70-20. Decisive victory for the Saxony Lutheran Lady Crusaders. And Oran defeating Scott County Central 81-40. Big win for the Oran Lady Eagles. And I believe that was in the Scott Mississippi County Conference Tournament Championship. Oran over Scott County Central. And in the third place game, it was Chaffee over Charleston 59-57. And also we have Campbell over Hawcom by a score of 66-31. 66-31, Campbell over Hawcom. Also from Thursday night, we've got Jackson over Cape Central in the SEMO Conference, 54-36. 54-36, Jackson over Cape Central. Kennett over Zenith Hornersville, 51-47. Sykeston over Notre Dame, also in the SEMO Conference, 67-62. Impressive victory for Sykeston over Notre Dame. And also we have Malden over South Pemiscot, 58-37. The Malden Green Wave victorious over South Pemiscot in the Boot Hill Conference, 58-37. And those are the games from Thursday night. No games from Friday night, as all those have been postponed due to the ice that moved in Thursday night. So nothing to report on from Friday. But if you want to catch that girls game throughout the weekend, Neelyville versus Dexter, you can watch that at 6:30 here on Saturday, and Sunday at 3 right here on YHC Channel 21 or your New Wave Cable, or you can go watch it on demand anytime. Go to our website at yhctv.com. It's available to watch there, as well as our Facebook page, as we brought a Facebook Live to our Facebook followers Thursday night on our Facebook page. And we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about our broadcasts we're going to be bringing to you next week. A little change in those due to the Friday weather. that moved in a couple of days ago. And we'll talk about the games we're bringing to you next week, as well as some state rankings updated for this last week in the state of Missouri. We'll be back with those coming up.
Popular brands with Red Wing, Justin. The best quality meets the best price at Boot Hill Boots and Shoes in Malden. They specialize in boots with the most popular brands with Red Wing, Justin, Dan Post, Double H, Ariat, Muck, and Doc Martens. Work, hunting, or western boots, they've got them all, as well as boots for the kids. And for women, they carry the favorites, Clark's, Bourne, and Merrill, and these Sanook Sidewalk Surfers are a big hit for a comfortable slip-on.
Come see us at Boot Hill Boots and Shoes,
where we combine low price, great selection, and customer service to give you the best shopping experience.
Why is Vision Source Dexter Family Eye Care different? Our office is doctor-owned, and we view our patients as part of our family. Whether it is the latest in fashion eyewear, the newest contact lenses, or total eye health care, we have one simple vision: to help people see. Using the latest technology, our Vision Source doctors can prescribe the most accurate eyewear, contact lens, and detect early stages of diabetes, heart disease, and hypertension. Experience the most caring and personalized eye care in the area and visit us at Dexter Family Eye Care.
And welcome back. And before we get into our schedule, intended to get to a Tuesday game that we had earlier this week, since we only had the Dexter and Neelyville highlights from Thursday night. Was going to have the Bernie and Dexter game Friday night here in Dexter, but last Tuesday night we had a Stoddard County Conference game with Bloomfield and Dexter. Bloomfield and Dexter at Bloomfield. Last Tuesday night down in Bloomfield and we were down for that. And taking a look at the game from Tuesday night. And we see here Gabe Jackson with a nice up and under move under the basket here. McCullough knocking down a shot on the right baseline. And Peyton Bell with a nice scoop shot at the basket. I think it was Peyton Bell. Here a kick out. Nice elbow shot there from the Dexter Bearcats, and nice three-point shot along the left side. Here kicked into the corner. And I believe that was Alan Pippins knocking down that three. And three-point shot in the corner up and good from McCullough. And here dump down pass. Nice look underneath. Bearcats score. And Dalton Phillips putting up a prayer right at the end of the first quarter. Gets it to go for the Wildcats. And here Alan Pippins knocking down a three on the left side. And dump down pass. Nice give and go. And a nice basket there for the Bearcats here. Three off the glass into the second quarter. And Bloomfield getting a three-pointer on the left side. Here McCullough goes to the basket. Little scoop shot up and good. And towards the end of the half here, we see a nice drive and finish. Looked like that was Rogers on the drive. And here three-pointer on the left side up and good for the Wildcats. And shot up and in here in the third quarter. And McCullough knocking down that left baseline jumper. And here Clay Mullins pulling up at the left elbow, knocking it down there in the third quarter. And on the left side, three-pointer up and good. I believe that was Rogers. And here three-pointer up and good as well, as Dexter really started to separate here in the second half. But Bloomfield hanging tough. But here, nice dump down pass. And Gabe Jackson with the nice assist there. And Gabe Jackson called with the charge here. It was a interesting play there in the fourth quarter. As we see here, Mullins with the basket and the foul. And here a nice kick out to the corner. Three-pointer up and good. And here just a few minutes left in the third quarter. Tough shot at the basket. Peyton Bell gets the basket and the foul. And here Mullins with a nice drive, gets the basket and the foul as well. And here nice dish off from Gargis with the assist on that one. And here nice drive and finish as pretty much coming to the end of this one. As a nice drive and finish there. But a 68-43 victory for 68-43 victory for the Dexter Bearcats. That was last Tuesday night at Bloomfield, and that game we brought to you right here on YHC. So good game there between those two, but Dexter pulling away in that one in that Stoddard County Conference matchup Tuesday night in Bloomfield. So always good to see those two teams match up, and Dexter pulling away in that one from Tuesday night. So taking a look at the games that we're going to have to bring to you this week. We're going to have a busy schedule this week. Monday night on the 16th, we will have, or the 15th, excuse me, we'll have a girls game, Park Hill Central at Dexter. We're going to bring that one live to you Monday night from the Bearcat Event Center. Going to be a good matchup there. Park Hill Central, a Class 3 team, taking on Dexter, who's Class 4. These two teams used to meet up quite a bit. They met probably 3 to 4 years back in the sectional round of the state tournament in Class 4. Park Hill Central has since moved down to Class 3, so they don't they match up the regular season, but never match up in the postseason anymore. But they typically a good matchup between those two schools. Park Hill Central winning a state championship. I believe that was 2 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago now. It's been some time, but won a state championship a couple years back. And Dexter certainly competitive in Class 4 in the state tournament as well. So it'll be a good matchup between those two Monday night from the Bearcat Event Center. We'll bring that live to you at around 7:30 right here on YHC. You can catch it online at yhctv.com and our Facebook Live as well. Then Tuesday night we've got boys down in Kennett. We've got Saxony Lutheran taking on the Kennett Indians. That'll be Tuesday night down there, and we'll bring that to you live around 7:30. And Saxony Lutheran, a pretty good team once again this year, so Kennett will have their hands full. And Kennett's had a couple SEMO Conference games here lately. Very tough SEMO Conference schedule, so we'll see what the Kennett Indians can bring to the Saxony Lutheran Crusaders Tuesday night down there in Kennett. Then Thursday night, we got a makeup game from this past Friday night, the game that was supposed to take place Friday, Bernie and Dexter. Going to bring that live to you Thursday night from the Dexter High School Gymnasium. A little throwback game there, as they call it there at Dexter High School. Throwback game with a chili supper fundraiser going on the same night. And great atmosphere. We'll certainly throw back to the Bernie and Dexter games there in the Dexter High School Gymnasium. It'll be a great atmosphere. It's a much smaller venue there at the high school gymnasium than the Bearcat Event Center. So it's gonna be a great atmosphere. The gym's certainly going to fill up, as Bernie's got a much more competitive team this year than they've had the last couple of teams. Finally getting some seniors there in the mix, and they've been competitive this year. Dexter, a very good team once again this year. Big rivalry game, as it always is between those two. Hasn't been a competitive game the last couple of years since Bernie's had some underclassmen and having to depend on them at the varsity level. Now they've got a full host of upperclassmen now this year. Be a much more competitive game, which we're looking forward to Thursday night from the Dexter High School Gymnasium. We'll bring that live to you at about a 7:30 start there in Dexter come Thursday night. Then Friday, we're staying in Dexter. We'll have New Madrid County Central and Dexter. That'll be at the Bearcat Event Center Friday night. That'll be a SEMO Conference matchup where New Madrid will take on Dexter. New Madrid, an improved team since the beginning of the year, a very young team. They don't have a senior on the roster, so they've been getting better and better as the season has progressed. And it'll be a tough road game for them going to the Bearcat Event Center, where Dexter is playing quite well. But it will be a back-to-back for Dexter. Might even be for New Madrid as well. I think New Madrid was slated to play Charleston, I believe. I might be wrong on that, but I think Charleston was slated to play New Madrid this last Friday night. I'm not sure when their makeup game is, but it'll certainly be a back-to-back for Dexter there for Thursday and Friday. But good matchup there between New Madrid and Dexter Friday night from the Bearcat Event Center. We'll bring it live to you right here on YHC. So those are the games to look forward to next week here on your hometown channel. We'll bring all those games live to you, 4 games. So Pretty busy slate. I think we're going to have 4 games a week for the next couple of weeks, I believe, because I think the next week we'll have the Stoddard County Activity Association final night from the Bearcat Event Center the following Friday night, and I think we've got quite a few games that week. I think actually we got 3 nights that week, the following week, so pretty busy slate here for the next few weeks here on YHC with some high school basketball, as we'll be likely coming to your neck of the woods as we're getting around quite a bit here for the next few weeks. And also, let's talk about the Stoddard County Activities Association Tournament, which they held the seed meeting today here on Saturday. Take a look at the varsity tournament, and both the varsity and JV tournaments going to be held at the Bearcat Event Center in Dexter this year, as it alternates between Bloomfield and Dexter each year. Here for the varsity tournament, Dexter with the top seed. They'll take on 8th-seeded Bell City. 4th-seeded Puxco will take on 5th Bloomfield. 2nd Advance versus 7th Richland. And 3rd Bernie versus 6th Woodland. Those are your first-round matchups and the tournament for the varsity Stoddard County Activities Association. So be looking forward to that tournament getting underway a week after this coming week. So it'll be not this coming week, but the week after the tournament there at the Bearcat Event Center in Dexter. And no real surprises there. No real surprise there, as really what really determined certainly the top half of the seeding was Bernie and Advance facing off last week, actually a couple weeks ago there in Bernie, as Advance very fortunate. They had a half-court shot by Armani Vermillion to force overtime, and then won in overtime against Bernie. So that pretty much settled that 2 and 3 seed, with Advance defeating Bernie. So they're the 2 and 3 seed. The only thing that may have mixed it up anymore is what happened between potentially Dexter and Bernie Friday night going into that seed meeting Saturday, but they didn't get to play, so didn't get to see what may have come up from that game into the seed meeting. So if Bernie would have defeated Dexter, certainly would have made it more interesting, but it was pretty much foregone that Dexter will get that top seed, then followed by Advance and Bernie with the top 3 seeds. And right there in the middle of the way, Puxco Bloomfield, it's kind of a toss-up between those two, but it doesn't even matter. Either way, they would have matched up in the first round against each other, but pretty much from that point on, it's pretty evident that the seeds would be as they are shown. So looking for a competitive tournament. Certainly Dexter, Bernie, and Advance, they're the top 3 seeds, are likely going to be able to probably fight it out for the tournament championship this year. And I'd like to see Dexter against Bernie or Advance going into this tournament, but we will next Thursday night, Bernie and Dexter, and then Dexter and Advance later on in the year, likely after that they're going to play in the tournament, I believe. So they might be playing this week. I'm not exactly sure on that, but still yet be an interesting matchup for any of those teams to match up, Dexter, Bernie, and Advance. Very good teams this year. Bernie and Advance. Dexter's pretty much on par with what they were that last year, probably even improved from last year's team, but they brought a whole lot back from last year's team, as did Bernie, even though Bernie's had some injuries this year. Hopgood's out for the year since even before the season, and had a couple kids out. Slavings and Zoll have spent some time out, so they might be working their way back in possibly by that tournament for the SCAA. And Advance, one of those surprise teams this year. They were runner-up in Class 1 last year in the state tournament and lost some kids from that team. I think they only returned 2 returning starters in Michael Hood and Armani Vermillion, which are very good players, but you lose 2 or 3 starters from a state championship team, it's going to take quite a bit away. But they've really recycled this year, got some new kids stepping in and playing at a high level. They're number 1 ranked team in the state, and they're showing it this year, the way that they've been playing. So Advance, a very, you hate to say improved team, but coming off a Class 1 runner-up run last year, but compared to what they lost and what they was expected to bring back, I think they've certainly had their kids stepping up, improving their games this year. And even Michael Hood, I think he's really taken a step forward this year and really elevated his game to another level that really has them playing at the level they're playing at this year. And Vermillion's been quite good once again this year, as he has the last couple of years. So very good team there in Advance. So certainly going to make the SCAA interesting this year. It's not just going to be a runaway kind of a rubber stamp for anyone in that tournament, even the top seed Dexter Bearcats. But going to be looking forward to a great tournament at the Bearcat Event Center, getting underway in a couple weeks in Dexter. So we'll be bringing the final night of that, the 4 games, the third place and championship games for varsity and JV there on that Friday night at the Bearcat Event Center in Dexter. So look forward to that come the final night of that SCAA tournament in Dexter. And we talked about a couple state rankings, some of our local teams, and we'll get to those now as the Class 1 state rankings for Missouri. This week, Advance staying on top at number 1. 2, North Andrew. 3, Dora. 4, Jamestown. 5, Winston. 6, Eminence, a little further out west. The Eminence Red Wings at number 6. 7, Lakeland. 8, Walnut Grove. 9, St. Joseph Christian. And 10, Medville. And those are your Class 1 state rankings. The Advance Hornets hanging on to number 1 in the state in Class 1. And taking a look at Class 2, Sacred Heart remains on top at number 1. 2, Mid-Buchanan. 3, Milan. 4, Eugene. 5, Oran, the defending Class 2 state champs. 6, Fayette. 7, Thayer. 8, Hartville. 9, Thomas Jefferson. And 10, Newburgh. And Oran was a bit, I think they were a couple rankings up. I think they were around 3rd, I believe, but moved down due to a loss to East Prairie last week. So they moved down a bit. Thayer's been there in the mix in the top 10 as well. So Oran and Thayer, they are our local teams in Class 2 and those state rankings this week. And again, those don't reflect these week's games. Those poll was released on Monday coming into this week. And taking a look at Class 3 this week. Mountain Grove at number 1, 2, Cardinal Ritter, 3, Whitfield, 4, Hallsville, 5, Charleston, 6, Clark County, 7, Springfield Catholic, 8, Saxony Lutheran, 9, St. Paul Lutheran, and 10, Palmyra. I believe Charleston was at number 5 last week as well. I thought they might have moved up with a victory over Sykeston a couple of weeks back, but not the case, as they hang there at number 5. Saxony Lutheran also there in the top 10 at number 8 here in southeast Missouri. And in Class 4, Vashon moves up to number 1 as they started the year. They moved down with a couple of losses, but Sykeston losing to Charleston moves them from 1 to 2 in this week's poll. 3, St. Mary's, who's right there in the mix, and I believe they still share a district with Vashon. So one of those 2 teams are going to get knocked out there in the district tournament up there in St. Louis. So Sykeston, if they are fortunate to advance, will probably run into one of those 2. And even down the way, Cape Central at number 4, they've moved up. I believe they were around 7th or 8th last week, moving up to number 4 with only 1 loss on the year. And I believe that is to Sykeston in that SEMO Conference Championship game earlier in the year. So Cape Central looking really good. They share the same district with Sykeston. That's interesting. Those top 4 teams share a district. Vashon shares one with St. Mary's, and Sykeston shares a district with Cape Central. So just after the district tournament, there will only be 2 of those 4 top teams remaining in the state tournament. So very interesting, as they're clustered up there in the top 4 and all sharing districts there with an opponent there in the top 4. And 5, Hillsboro, they're right up there in District 2 or 3, I believe, because they're the neighboring district. Yeah, they're in District 2 right there. Sykeston played Hillsboro in the sectionals last year, so they're an undefeated 14-0 coming into this week as the Hillsboro Hawks. They're in the top 5 at number 5 this week. 6, Grandview of Kansas City. 7, Parkway Central. 8, Nevada. 9, Confluence Prep. And 10, Raytown South. And in Class 5, Lee Summit West, Webster Groves, Hazelwood Central, Rockbridge, North Kansas City, Liberty, Chaminade, Oak Park, Park Hill South, and Glendale. And Sykeston's going to be taking on Chaminade. That might be this week. I know it's this month. I can't exactly remember which week it is, but they've got a matchup with Chaminade coming up, the Sykeston Bulldogs. So big matchup for them coming up soon. And take a look at the girls' Class 1 rankings. Walnut Grove, Southwest Livingston County, Leeton, South Iron, Jefferson, Madison, Mound City, Norborn, Community, and Hermitage. No local teams there in Class 1. Class 2, Skyline at number 1, followed by 2, Thayer, Mid-Buchanan, Blue Eye, Oran, Neelyville, Fordland, Hartville, New Bloomfield, and Stanberry. And the Neelyville Lady Tigers and Oran Lady Eagles, they're neck and neck at 5 and 6, and Thayer also there in the mix at number 2. So that's going to be an interesting potential district and state tournament runs for those 3 teams, as we'll see who makes it out come the end of the year. Very competitive there in Class 2 and girls basketball here in Southeast Missouri. Oran advanced last year, and Neelyville was probably expected to, but Oran got out, and it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out once again this year in Class 2. And in Class 3, Stratford at number 1, followed by 2, Trenton, Monroe City, Whitfield, South Callaway, Licking, Fairgrove, Herman, Clark County, and Park Hills Central. Park Hills Central Lady Rebels, they're at number 10. And again, we'll have them Monday night, our next game, with the Dexter Lady Bearcats, 2 state-ranked teams, and in their respective classes, Class 3 and 4. And take a look at Class 4, Incarnate Word. State champions going on, I think, 3 years now. They're at number 1. 2, Carl Junction. 3, Benton. 4, Lincoln Prep. 5, Parkway North. 6, Sullivan. 7, Dexter. 8, St. Dominic. 9, Osage. And 10, Country Day. Dexter Lady Bearcats there at number 7. I believe they move up 1 from 8 last week, I believe. So Dexter Lady Bearcats did suffer a loss this week to Neelyville, so we might see them move down maybe this coming week. We'll see, but I probably expect them to still remain in that top 10 this coming week. And in Class 5, Kirkwood on top at number 1. 2, the Jackson Lady Indians put together a fine year. I think their only loss is to the Dexter Lady Bearcats in the SEMO Conference Tournament earlier in the year, so they're looking good there in Jackson this year. 3, Kickapoo. 4, Lee Summit West. 5, Rockbridge. 6, Branson. 7, Nixa. 8, Waynesville. 9, Liberty of Kansas City. And 10, St. Joseph's Academy, rounding out the Class 5 state rankings. And those are the state rankings this week, and as you see, we've got quite a few teams there in the mix in high school basketball this year. And some very good teams. We got some top-ranked teams in there, notably Advance for the boys, and some in the top 5 there with Sykeston and Charleston, Cape Central, and on the girls' side there with Oran and Neelyville right there at 5 and 6, and some very good teams this year. Thayer at number 2 there in Class 2. So some very good teams this year. So some teams really stepped up their games and really looking good this year. So we'll see what happens as we're pretty much at the midway point of the season, probably coming up on this week, and it gets interesting at this time of year here into late January. A lot of conference games and conference tournaments coming up here in late January, early February. So we'll see what happens here in the next week, as we'll be busy bringing quite a few games to you here on YHC and for the remainder of the season. And we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to preview the NFL playoffs for you coming up today and tomorrow this weekend, the divisional round. We'll be back with that coming up. And welcome back, and we're going to wrap up today's show with a little preview of the NFL playoffs taking place this weekend, known as the best weekend in professional football, the divisional round. Get some pretty much the best 4 teams from each conference in the playoffs in 2 days. So look forward to these games today here at 3:30 on NBC. We've got the top seeded in the NFC, top seeded Philadelphia Eagles hosting the 6th seeded Atlanta Falcons, the defending NFC champions, going on the road to take on the Philadelphia Eagles, the top seed in the NFC. And I can't remember what the networks were saying earlier this week, the first time that a top seed in either conference has been the underdog in the playoffs. It's been quite some time. It's very rare, but Carson Wentz going down for the Philadelphia Eagles about 5 weeks ago, a little over a month ago. Nick Foles stepping in as the backup into the starting role hasn't been very reassuring at all for the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Atlanta Falcons, very seasoned team, coming off a very disappointing loss to the Patriots in the Super Bowl last year. And they're going on the road to take on the Eagles, 3:30 against the Eagles on NBC. And I think the Falcons are 3.5-point favorites, and I think they'll probably cover that. I think they'll probably get a touchdown or 10-point victory. As the Eagles just aren't the same team. You lose a big-time quarterback like Carson Wentz, bringing back an iffy backup quarterback, it's not good. So, and a team like the Falcons, they've won close all year long, and I think this one they might not have to squeak out a victory like they have over the past couple of weeks. So I expect the Falcons to move on in that matchup for this afternoon. Then later on tonight in the AFC, we've got the top-seeded New England Patriots finishing the year at 13-3, hosting the Tennessee Titans, who pulled off an impressive victory against the Kansas City Chiefs last week in Kansas City. And Kansas City's home playoff woes continue as they drop another one. I think that's 5 or 6 straight home playoff losses for that franchise in Kansas City. And losing Kelsey, their star tight end, midway through that game, pretty much did it. They just could not sustain the offense against Tennessee. Tennessee didn't have an answer for him. He was lighting it up. I think he had a touchdown. I think he had at least one touchdown and had 65 yards at that point, not even at halftime of the game. And they came back from, 18 points down, the Titans did, and won late in the game. So hats off to them for pulling it off. But, not a very experienced team by any means there in Tennessee. Marcus Mariota, the third-year quarterback, going to go on the road against probably the best home field advantage there is, and perhaps sports, is Gillette Stadium in Foxborough up there in New England. So it's going to be a tough matchup for the Tennessee Titans going on the road. But the Patriots are vulnerable. They got one of the worst pass defenses in the league, and they give up quite a bit on the ground as well. But they're very tough in the red zone. I think they're the 5th best scoring defense in the league, so they don't give up a whole lot of points. They give up a lot of yards, but once you get into the red zone, teams are kicking field goals and not scoring touchdowns, which field goals won't be enough in New England, taking on them in the playoffs. And Tom Brady hasn't been the same quarterback as he probably was in the first half of the year. Really struggled over the last 5 weeks of the season, so we'll see if that continues today against the Titans. But, New England, big favorites, 13.5-point favorite at home today or tonight, as that game will be on, let's see when that game will be on. Which network? It'll be a CBS game tonight, 7:15 start. 13.5-point favorites, unreal. But Tennessee got a chance to really pull off an upset as the 5th seed in the conference, taking on the top-seeded New England Patriots later on tonight. Here's Saturday night, and I expect the Patriots to win. Probably, I think Tennessee will cover. I'd take the Titans plus 13.5. I think it'll be a 10, 12-point game, something like that, which Patriots winning pretty handily. Probably not even within a touchdown. I would expect maybe a 10-point victory for the Patriots. So, but that's a big That's a big favorite, 13.5 points. So you don't see that often, certainly at this round of the playoffs. The Jaguars and the Steelers. Tomorrow will be the first game on Sunday in that divisional. The Steelers, the 2nd seed, taking on the 3rd-seeded Jacksonville Jaguars. A very intriguing matchup because they faced off earlier in the year, and the Jaguars rolled over the Steelers 30-9, I believe that final score was. And Ben Roethlisberger throwing 5 interceptions in that game. I wouldn't quite expect the same performance out of him. Certainly 5 interceptions. I don't see that happening. But Jacksonville, a very good defense. I think they're top 1 or 2 in the league in defense. And a so-so offense, a run-heavy offense, Leonard Fournette, the feature back, and he's getting a lot of carries, keeping the ball on the ground. And Blake Bortles not asked to do a whole lot, which he played poorly last week against Buffalo. Just awful. Couldn't hit anything short, anything intermediate, anything. He couldn't hit it, but did just enough to defeat the Bills last week. I believe that was like a 10-7 game or something like that. It was, probably what you would expect out of a Jaguars-Bills contest, but very good defense that can really make some things happen for the Jaguars. They really need to come up with some turnovers again against the Steelers because I believe Antonio Brown's going to be back. He went out with an injury against the Patriots late in the year. I think he had a strained calf or something of the sort, and they expect him back on the field. And Le'Veon Bell looking really good out of the backfield. Ben Roethlisberger playing better, but Jaguars need some turnovers to give their offense a chance to put up some points against the Steelers on the road in Pittsburgh. So we'll see what happens. But I expect a close game, and I think the Steelers are just going to pull it out, maybe a 6-point victory, holding off the Jaguars. I think it's going to be a tough one. Jaguars defense really tough, make things tough for the Steelers to get going. I think it could be a close one, but I expect the Steelers to move on. And the Saints and the Vikings, that'll be Sunday afternoon, 3:40 start on Fox, and very interesting matchup between these two. The Vikings, the second seed in the NFC, and probably likely I would say the favorite to come out of the NFC at this point, since the Eagles, without their star quarterback Carson Wentz, Minnesota's probably that highest seed expected to make a run, as they'll probably have home field advantage throughout. After this round, I would assume if the Falcons are likely to beat the Eagles. But the Vikings, third-string quarterback Case Keenum, I wouldn't necessarily call him a third-string. He's probably just a typical backup, but he stepped in and played great since earlier in the year. Sam Bradford goes down after the first week. Case Keenum steps in and picks it up as they go to the second seed with a 13-3 record. Very good defense there in Minnesota, one of the top 3, I believe, in the league. Very good, and got quite an offense there. Not bad as well. Adam Thielen, a very good wide receiver that's really stood out this year and kind of had his breakout year there in Minnesota. Case Keenum, very aggressive down the field, very aggressive play, which they need out of their offense, playing well. And, of course, that defense has been good for the last number of years, and the offense has finally stepped up to match the efforts of the defense. So it's going to be tough for the Saints to go in there, although it is going to be a dome atmosphere, I believe. So that'll help the Saints, a dome team going all the way up to Minnesota in January. Certainly not the ideal conditions, but I expect, I think they do. I can't remember if Minnesota has that ability to kind of open it up to let in the cold or not. But they do have a dome, but I think they can open it up if they want, at least the elements to get in the temperature. I'm not exactly sure if they can or not in that arena or not. But either way, the Saints are looking really good. They got a nice victory last week, as now they're on the road. But very impressive win last week for the Saints, as Drew Brees had a great kind of a throwback game for him. This year they've been a well-balanced team, a better defense, and a very good running game with Ingram and Kamara out of the backfield, and some new wide receiver weapons he's throwing to. So he hasn't had quite the year like the 5,000 passing yard year or 35 plus touchdowns. I think he only had about 28 touchdowns this year, if I'm not mistaken, and didn't throw for 5,000 and did throw for 72% passing, which was an all-time record. Broke Sam Bradford's record that set it last year. But Drew Brees has had a pretty good year. I know for him, compared to his last, over the last probably 6 or 7 years, it's not one of his better seasons, but it's been an efficient year, and they've done a lot more running, and the defense has stepped up, so a much more balanced team out of the Saints this year. And Brees still got that capability. If that run game's shut down like it was last week, going to the air, he had I think he had 379 passing yards last week with a couple touchdowns. So impressive outing from him, and he's there if they need him, that's for sure. But they certainly like that balanced attack this year in New Orleans, as they've got probably the best team they've had since that Super Bowl team in 2009, I would say. So look out for these Saints. They might be able to pull it off on the road against the Vikings on Sunday. So those are the 4 matchups to look forward to. I'm kind of going with the Saints. I'm thinking the Saints might pull that one off tomorrow. About a 3-4 point victory. That's what I'm kind of expecting there. So some good matchups. Look forward to this weekend, and we'll see what happens as the conference championships will be set for next week after this weekend for the NFL. So we'll see what happens. And that's going to be all for us today, and we're going to wrap it up as a pretty thin week. We didn't have a whole lot to do. We had a couple games, Bloomfield and Dexter Tuesday, and then that girls Neelyville and Dexter game Thursday. No games last night, so not near as much to report on for today, but heavy slate for us this next week as, again, show you the games that we're bringing to you this week here on YHC. Monday night, girls Park Hill Central versus Dexter from the Bearcat Event Center, 7:30 start. Tuesday night, we'll have Saxony Lutheran at Kennett, down at Kennett, also a 7:30 start. Thursday night, we'll have the makeup game, Bernie versus Dexter from the high school gymnasium in Dexter. That'll be around a 7:30 start as well. And then Friday, we'll have New Madrid County Central at Dexter from the Bearcat Event Center. Next Friday night, also a 7:30 start. So those are the 4 matchups to look forward to this week here on YHC. And that'll do it for us this week. And we appreciate you for tuning in as always. And we'll see you next week right here on YHC. Hopefully you'll tune in for those 4 broadcasts we bring to you and the rest of them for the remainder of the season. I'm Tyler Wagner. Take care, everyone.